Thanks, guys, for coming.
Well, thank you. All we did was show up.
Well, as you'll gather from me, I do enjoy having an audience, and I do love talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I do love talking about...
Talking about the who?
There are people saying that right now. So, everybody I get asked this question every time. Why? What's the passion? What is it? So what I've got is three things here. So first off, as a kid growing up, first off, I'm 61 years old. I'll be 62 in the summer. And when I was growing up, there wasn't much. There was the Toronto Maple Leafs, and there was the Toronto Argonauts. And the Toronto Argonaut games weren't on TV at night, or the home games weren't. The away games weren't. They're on during the week, so I never get to see them. So really, the only thing you have with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And those games started at 9 o'clock at night. So, and they used to start at 9:30. So you really didn't even get to see a lot of that. And if you recall, anybody who's old enough to remember back in those days, there wouldn't be dry ground outside right now in February. There'd be about this much snow, and it'd be very cold.
Why did they start their games so late?
Well, because of the TV contracts.
So West Coast.
No, it was just with CBC. And I mean, Paul can go into that with you more later, but it's just the way the contract was, and the other things had pressing...
Well, they started the games at 8:30 back then.
And the games, don't forget, the games on TV, they come on at 9 o'clock and 9:30. The game started at 8:30, I think, on live.
I see.
And then they went to 8, and then they moved back. So anyway, so the biggest thing for me was growing up was hockey right away became an ultimate passion. And the Toronto Maple Leafs just resonated with me. So, I mean, this love of the Toronto Maple Leafs and a love of hockey just was everything in my life. I ate, slept, and drank it constantly. And I played it. And I played all the way up. I played a little bit of minor pro hockey and stuff. So I was, I was one of those guys that it was just consumed me. And, you get up in the morning, you're out on the ice, and you're playing at the schoolyard. If you're not playing at the schoolyard, you're playing on the street. Whereas opposed to today, a kid comes home, and he's going to his, shooting practice, or he's going to a goaltending school, or he's going to off-ice training. I mean, really, how much off-ice training, this is very appropriate for what we're leading into, off-ice training can you do for a 10-year-old? So anyway, so all those days, the passion was, and then became the Toronto Maple Leafs. So anything I'd ever seen the Toronto Maple Leafs, I had to have. So, and remember, there wasn't much. The newspapers come out in the afternoon. The hockey cards were, what I could afford, I would get cards. Any pitcher I'd see, I just had to have it. So that was my phase of my life growing up. And the first piece I ever got was a Carl Brewer game-used stick from a family relative. And a couple of the guys have heard the story before, but it just became everything to me was that stick. The second piece was that Frank Mahovlich poster. And that poster I got from my uncle, my dad's brother, and he gave me two. Now, Frank Mahovlich's dad used to be the skate sharpener at Leaside Arena. And my dad played in the IBM Hockey League there, so I used to go there every Sunday morning and hang around.
Frank Mahovlich's dad was
the skate sharpener. Yep. He was there for years and years and years. So what happened was I used to go and hang around the rink, and
Thank you. That's very
just to see Mr. Mahovlich. Anyway, I got one of these posters, took it to Mr. Mahovlich, and gave it to him. So I was this little guy, he's this big man in the overalls coming up, and handed him the poster, and he kind of he knew who I was, and he broke an accent, patted me in the head, turned around and stuck it in his booth, and it stayed there till the day he retired. I had Ted Mahovlich and Frank Mahovlich both tell me they have family pictures with Frank with that picture in the background and his dad at the front. So that was the stage where I just collected everything and had to have it. Now, fast forwarding the story.
How old were you?
Well, I was by the time I was like 8, 9, 10 years old, collecting all this stuff.
What did your parents think?
Well, my dad was a Leaf fan too, so that's where I got it from. I remember, you got to remember, Chris, back in those days, people's lives, if anybody had a TV, people would go to a person's house and spend the evening and just watch the Leaf game.
Sure.
And the groups would all go together. So that's how they were brought up. And there wasn't much else. The Toronto Maple Leaf baseball was fading. As I said, the Argonauts really there wasn't much there.
Yeah.
So this was it for entertainment. You had 4 TV stations, maybe, if you had rabbit ears. You got to put yourself back in the time. So for me then going forward, the passion came to collect Maple Leaf stuff. And as I earned more money, I could buy more things. I went to the shows and just accumulated all this stuff. So the second part was just trying to have everything Toronto Maple Leafs. And I remember going to the Gardens as a kid, and a couple games I'd go to, and I'd stand outside the dressing room door and wait for the players to come out. I remember I got a tour of the Gardens one time, and I went in the Leaf dressing room, and I just, it was just, my heart, and even today when I find something, my heart skips a beat. So honestly, and I went up to that George Armstrong sweater, and I'm not going to tell you a fairy tale story here that was the exact sweater, but it was pretty much that era, and seeing that sweater and Dave Kim was my favorite player. And I happened to saw that sweater and that blue in the sea, I just was on a path right to that to touch it. And, little did I know, it's 50 some odd years later, I'd have a sweater similar from that era in my case, and I'd have the door that I stood and admired and just prayed that I could just see a player coming out of there. So through that whole phase of collecting everything that took me to this stage I'm at today, and this is where it brings us what we want to talk about, is that now I'm at the stage where I have all these things and I become a collector and you become known as a collector. Now it's why.
Right. And what?
And the why is, the biggest thing to try to tell people is that what it does is it brings you back in time. So every piece in here that I have has a story. And if it doesn't have a story, it's just something you can stick in the wall. You might as well stick a piece of grass up in the wall. But if it has a story, what it does, it leads to further stories. And what I find with sports memorabilia in particular, it has tentacles, and the tentacles are endless. So starting off as an example, I had a lady, and there's a whole story. I get contact all the time through my agent, Debbie. She takes all the calls. So what happens is a lady called and she said, I have this coin that my grandfather had. And I've been checking everywhere, and I found you. And what I wanted to do is, do you know this coin? And she said that I knew exactly what it was. It was a gold coin given to the Toronto Maple Leafs in 1932 by Conn Smythe for winning the Stanley Cup, and it was a lifetime pass to the Gardens. Oh. And it was Busher Jackson's. So I said to her, okay, well, tell me about your grandfather. What can you tell me about him? Well, he liked to drink. Okay, what else can you tell me? We like to play cards. Okay, so where did he grow up? Well, in Winnipeg. Okay, so what era was he? Well, he was a mid-range guy in the 30s, and so I said, all right, well, you know what? I got something for you here. So what else do you have in memorabilia? Nothing. I said, all right. Well, these two somehow cross paths. Let me do some work. So I was shortening the story down a little bit. So what happened is I was doing some work on the Leafs barnstorming. And the barnstorming was when at 34, they took a team and they traveled across Canada. They went to Winnipeg, and then they went to Trail, BC, or they went through a couple different parts of Canada to get out there. Like as an example, I left Toronto on April the 12th on train and got into Winnipeg the morning of the 14th. So you can see how travel was. So anyway, they got right out to Vancouver, and the Gyro Club of Vancouver sponsored the event. I actually have a trophy. I was trying to do research, and it was given to Frank Selke. So doing that, I found out about this. Well, as I discovered in 1934, when the Leafs played on this barnstorming tour in Winnipeg, guess who was there? Busher Jackson. And scored a couple, actually got 5 points in the first game. Well, guess what? So I went back to her, and I said, you know what? Your grandfather, if he was in that area in that time, these two characters hooked up in a card game, drinking, and it was a debt, an IOU, or a gift.
Gift. We'll go with gift. Yeah.
And she ran away with that. That just resonated with her, and that was the story. So
why did they do the tour, the barnstorming tour?
To make money, because at the time, they were trying to sell tickets.
Going across by train?
Well, they were trying to sell tickets or go by train.
Prostitute were with them, and he was more popular than the players because they listened to him
on the radio.
Oh, really?
They know his
That must have been a heck of a train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, Toronto won the division, and Detroit won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
But they didn't have enough players to go, so they brought some of the league. They brought other players to play against them, and then they put up a reward at the end, or $500. Anyway, so what happens is in the 30s, like the thing about it, so what I try to do is we go back and try and do research and see where these stories all lead. You think back in the 60s, you think about the music, think about where you were living, think about your house, the cost of this, the cost of whatever it was. So now going back, you think I was in the brokerage business most of my life, for 40 years. I look back to 1930, Depression. Conn Smythe builds a hockey arena. Who does that? Then to make his team even better, he spends $10,000 of his own money to buy one of the most popular players of all time in King Clancy and pays $35,000 during a depression. In 1927, when he buys the Toronto Maple Leaf Hockey Club, he gets the down payment from building the New York Ranger hockey team, and they owed him money, and then took the $2,500 they had, bet it on a football game, won, and then bet it on a hockey game and won, and used that as a down payment to save the team from moving to Philadelphia for $300,000. He got a hometown discount for $200,000 with J.P. Bickle, who sponsored him. And Gardner, who was in the brokerage business also, had some of the land, and the land came from Eagles. So all that stuff all just kind of just gets you going and gets the juices flowing, and that's why you want to know. So it brings us to this. So Conn Smythe was an innovator, and he was a visionary, and he was a genius. And he was the first guy to build a minor league system to stockpile players, because he knew that the players, they're coming and going and coming and going. So he had a team. So what happened is around 1935, he was always trying to get an edge
Without a farm team system, how did they know who to recruit prior
Because
to
they just
that?
got players from everywhere. And teams were, like back in the early days, the
But
teams
what
were,
league were the young kids playing
they were
in?
playing senior hockey, varsity hockey, junior hockey, amateur, anywhere. They could just track
But
them
they
down.
would go straight from that to being part of the league?
if they were good enough.
Wow.
Well, don't forget all the other teams are chasing these players too.
Yeah.
So to speed things up a little bit, he wanted to always look for the edge. So now, being a staunch military man that he was, the little colonel they called him, he came across, the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 30s used to train in Galt, in a place called Preston Springs.
And my folks grew up in Galt, of course.
Yeah, we're Galtonians. And
Well,
actually,
there was
Preston
a-
Springs Hotel is not in Galt, it's in Preston.
Well, it's all became Cambridge
It
now.
all became Cambridge, which is a horrible idea.
Well, that's not what we're here to discuss, okay? So anyway, there's this very tough, let me read you the quote. There's a very tough military man by the name, I think you guys will know who he is,
Yes,
Sgt Major, and he was stationed in Galt, and the Leafs, looking for an edge, wanted to have a physical training. So what they did was now here's the part that I'm trying that we haven't been able to track down, and we're working on this. How Kim and Con hooked up together. Now the Galt armories were there, and he was stationed there.
He was a regimental sergeant.
That's right. So what happened was, the Leafs then, and you got to remember, in that time, they didn't do this stuff. Nobody trained. Nobody trained. So for these guys to show up and have your boss, like he told George Hainsworth in 1936, he told all the players, you guys better come in half decent shape because you're in for a surprise if you're not. Meaning that, Austin, Hadfield was going to be there. So so what he did 2 weeks before training camp, he rode a bike 10 miles a day. Like, think about that. And these other players were doing, a lot of them did nothing. So anyway, in they come, and now all of a sudden they meet this, this Sergeant Major. And they call, and I love this description of him. They talked about him. After their first work under Sergeant Major Hadfield, it was described as a stiff hour of physical torture. Hadfield was described as a huge, billowy-chested martinet with Army regulations written all over his frame. Okay, so he not only did the fact that he trained these guys, he trained with them. He was 50 years old, probably at that time. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but he's close to 50.
What year was he born?
Well, this was 1936.
What year was Granddad born?
Granddad, 1899.
1890.
50 in the war started.
Yeah, so he's
late 40s.
Yeah, so there you go. So late 40s.
30s, he was in his 40s.
Yeah.
So he was also so the thing is about him, he when he was training the Leafs, the interesting thing is that he did the workouts with them. And so as I said, one of the things about him is he was working out so hard that in 1936, now going back, this was the first year, going into his second year, he lost 15 pounds training for the month with the Toronto team. And he made a comment that I love this. He said, I was on grog ration. You know, a battalion sergeant major often has a lot of drinks to handle, don't you? Well, I chuckle away for these Leafs, and they made it worthwhile. Huh. So, and they even got to calling him, and I had to look this up because I quite frankly honestly didn't know who it was, Joe Palooka.
I saw that in the article, yeah.
And he was called Joe Palooka because Joe Palooka was a cartoon character that came out in 1930, and he was a tough guy, fighter guy, and he beat everybody up. But they referred to the real tough guys as that. So anyway, so here you go. So here's Sergeant Major. He's running the workouts, and they were called the PT sessions. So here was the Leafs' tough day. They would get up at 7 o'clock in the morning in Preston. They would then have breakfast at 7:30. At 8:15, they would go for an hour and 25 minutes with Sergeant Major for PT training. And that would include any kind of physical exercise. Now, if there were rain, they wouldn't work out in the rain. So they'd go to the Galt armories and work inside. So the players, the first time that happened, thought they were going to get a break and have it a little bit easier. They go inside, and you know what stops and starts are on the ice. They did stops and starts running. And after an hour and 15 minutes, these guys couldn't even walk. So to show you a sign of the times, the Syracuse Stars were the minor league team of the Leafs then. And the Leafs owned that team from 1936 to 1939. And one of the coaches there, Eddie Powers, coached that team. And Dick Irwin coached the Leafs. And Smythe would be there. And Smythe, he would be doing all the exercises with the players. And some of the exercises would be carrying a player. And they were the first guys, never mind the Russians, as Paul and I have discovered. They were carrying players on their backs before the Russians. And that was one of Sergeant Major's duties, or one of his exercises that make the players do. And they'd stand and watch these guys do it. And whoever came in near the rear of the group or was painting heavily, we'd do double time in the ice on the afternoon. So what they would do is, so you do the hour and 25 minutes with Sergeant Major, have lunch, or no, then you play 9 holes of golf, then have lunch, then you get a small rest period, then 3 hours on the ice.
Wow.
And that was mandatory. So if you think about that, that was the start when nobody did this. And what I found in our research was that extensively they talked about the PT, they called it. The physical training was just so hard on these guys and so overwhelming for a lot of these guys, it was overbearing. And they kept referring to, Sergeant Major as just this tough, hard-nosed guy that just pushed these guys like they'd never been pushed before. So we found out that, and the Toronto Maple Leafs, they listened to him, and they did whatever he said. But if you think about it, the players back in those days doing that, and if you fast forward to where a player is today, like it's almost 24 hours a day. These kids are watching their bodies, 12 months of the year. And if you go back into time during the 60s, Frank Mahalovich and these guys got letters from Punch Imlach that would say, you have to show up in camp and be able to do 20 sit-ups and 20 push-ups, and you have to play around the golf. So be prepared to do that. That was your training. That was your training coming into the 60s. In the 70s, Jacques Pont is one of the greatest goalies probably of all time. Wrote a letter to Toronto Maple Leafs looking for a tryout. Suggested that I was running up to a quarter of a mile once a day, 3 weeks before training camp. That's me. I'm committed to being in shape. But this all started back in Cambridge, back in the day. Well, in Preston, back in the day, at Riverside Park, and at the Galt Armories. So, some of the things I found interesting were when you're dealing with...
Just a sec, how far is it from the hotel to Riverside Park to the Armories? Are they all close?
No, the Armories are right in the middle of Galt.
Yeah, I've been to the Armories, or I think once you took me there when I was a kid. How far is away the hotel and the...
The hotel is when you come out of Cambridge, Galt into Preston, and you're heading up for 401, and there's a great big hill. The hotel was right there at the bottom of the hill.
So they were taking a bus back and forth every day.
There would have to be a bus back and forth,
Yeah, they would. And so, one of the funny things is, here's another story for it. It just shows you the sign of the times. And our good friend here, who, he can clarify whether it's right, something like this. The Syracuse team had 2 kids come up. This one kid's name was Simmons, the other kid's name was Halleck. They're high school kids. So they get sent up from Syracuse to try out. And they're destined to play for the Syracuse Star team. So they're skating for a couple of days. And after one of Sergeant Major's workouts, these kids are so done, they can barely speak. So they go up to Eddie Powers, the coach, and said, can you help us out? With what? Well, we haven't got 10 cents between the two of us, and we have to eat, and after that, we're dead. He looks at them. Now think about this. This is a coach. Says, what do you want me to do, cry? and then he looked at them and he said, by the way, who sent you 2 here anyway? Like, why are you here? And he said, well, isn't Mr. Johnson the owner of the team? Yeah. We said, well, what did he give you? Didn't he give you any money? He said, well, yeah, but you made us stay in Galt. The team's staying in Preston. And Preston are staying in barracks or wherever they're staying in. They're staying in somewhere where it's no cost. And in Galt, they had to pay full fare. So our money's all gone. And so there's one guy, Halleck, looks at Powers. So Powers is reaching in his pocket to give him some money. Halleck looks at Powers and says, and by the way, why didn't you invite us out here? What did you think we were, black folk or something? So he took his hand out of his pocket. And at that time, then Dick Irwin came up and put them in the barracks with these guys. But as it turns out, the kid they were after was Simmons. But Simmons didn't have a car, so he couldn't get to Galt. The other's buddy had a car. So he said, we'll give him a trot if he drives you. So these are the type of things that you find when you do, and it goes on and on and on and on and on from there. And this is what excites me about this type of stuff. And and I think this is the part of the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's an iconic franchise. It's a must-know situation, I think, for anybody growing up in this city and for most Canadians, because it should resonate the same way, the Manchester United, the New York Yankees, and all these teams. That's the Toronto Maple Leafs.
It's in the blood.
It's in the blood, and the stuff you will find is just fascinating. Like this right here. I got this book from a guy. I've asked people, who's George McCullough? It's George McCullough. Here's his book. It's from Conn Smythe. These beautiful pictures, a lot of pictures of Conn in here, of course. But that's a book for him, and he was with the Toronto Maple Leafs as a director, and that's when they won a Stanley Cup, and that's given to him as a personal gift from Conn Smythe. So I did a little work on George McCullough. So it turns out George McCullough was a broker. He had a passion for writing. He ends up buying the Globe, merges it with the Mail in 1936, and made the Globe Mail. He then turned around and he got involved in politics because one side of it was liberal, one side of it was conservative. He merged them together, so there was all that battling going on within the city at the time. He then, stayed involved in all that, and in 1947 bought the Toronto Telegram, just to own it. Because John Robinson, and it's interesting if you look at the trail, John Ross Robinson bought the Telegram. He was a big proponent against professional hockey in Toronto altogether. He wanted amateur, and he was so, here's this guy going to a guy in the professional level, the Telegram ends up, and in 1952, George McCullough committed suicide. He was having bad headaches, heart problems, and he ended his own life, sadly. The Bassett family bought the Telegram with funding from the Eaton family. And if you think about the transition of the people going through that stage, and the Bassetts and the impact they had on the Toronto Maple Leafs, John F. Bassett Jr., the impact he had on the WHA, all these young players you see signed today are as a result of his genius and forward thinking. And the European players, Vasilov Nedomansky, first one brought over, that's John Bassett. So you can tie all that stuff in together. And it's funny that we started looking at that. And I talked to John Bassett Jr., the son, last night, because when we were doing some of the work, the Telegram microfiche library is in North York, but there's a copy at the reference library. But it's the only publication that's not online, correct, Paul?
It's the only one. There's no other way of getting that history of the Leafs other than going to microfiche and spending hours and hours there.
And you just have just visual, huh?
But you can get it,
We're trying to digitize it, but since we know John Bassett and they last owner of the Toronto Telegram, maybe we can.
So I asked Johnny. I said, where's do you know where the whereabouts of this is? Because it's the only one that's not online. He said, that's a great question, Mike. Because in 1971, after there was a strike and all that kind of stuff, and they started losing money, they just dumped it, and it became the Toronto Sun. What happened to the files? He said, that's a great question. I'll ask my uncle. I said, but I'll let you know next week because it'll take a couple of days to get back to me. So again, you can see the tentacles where you can go with all these stories, and you can tie the Toronto Maple Leafs into it all. You can tie the history into it. Like every facet of life gets touched by this hockey club. I know that's a reach, but it does. You can for Debbie and I, we've got you wonderful people over here today. It's opened up a world in the charity world that it's brought to us that has helped lots and lots of people. I always like to think it's because of me they want to come here, but it's usually because of Debbie in the room. But all that stuff is all a result of this. And everybody walking down here has a story. Lance wrote a wonderful story on us a couple of years ago. It was a Pulitzer Prize winner, I believe. Anyway, he said, who is your favorite player? Dave Keon. He said, well, is that a coincidence there's 14 steps coming down the stairs? I said, well, you can write that any way you want. I could say I was playing. But every person that walks down this basement has a story. Huh. And
I just brought you another one today.
You brought me a wonderful story. And here we are, 1936. So here you have Sgt Major training the Leafs with this new
young Sillaps.
And this young rookie kid that they're looking at, the name is Sillaps.
Yeah, Paris, Ontario.
Yeah.
He's the new kid coming in because somebody else is going to be replacing Joe Primo. And who's the guy going to be coming in at some time filling all these needs and filling these players that are moving out? And here's one of their new up-and-coming stars. And there's the connection with Hadfield and him, right there. Yeah. And you know what?
No, in 36, I was just brand new.
You were born. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know any Hadfields.
You get somebody like, it doesn't matter who comes down. I don't care who it is, because every person in this room was a child at one time, and somebody watched a hockey game somewhere. Somebody had a hero somewhere. Wayne Gretzky, who I admire, as you can see, I think is the greatest athlete ever of any sport, the way he carries himself on the playing surface and off. And there's nobody that touches him. Nobody. And he walks down those steps last summer to help one of our events, and he was like a 10-year-old kid all over again, pointing at this, pointing at that, pointing at... And the little bit I know of him, I've met him a few times, he does not like to talk about his own things. So I pointed at that sweater there, the blue gold Team Canada sweater, where they wore in 1978. And that was when he was a 16-year-old, and he led the scoring, and that's Rick Vives, actually. I said, Wayne, does that sweater look familiar? And I assume he meant it was his. He immediately goes, oh, I sure remember that, Mike. But you see that picture behind you, the lithograph? And that's the record-breaking goal. He said, I got a good story for you on that. That's a Leroy Neiman work. If everybody's familiar with his work. He said he used to come to a lot of our games. So after that happened, he was talking to Luc Robitaille. And he said to Luc, would you like me to do something to commemorate the evening for all the players? And Lucky said, absolutely, right, please, would love that. So off he goes, and a couple months later, he shows up at the dressing room, and every player gets his own beautiful copy of that wonderful work.
Wow.
And along with the copy, they got a bill. You know, and Wayne just loved that. So, but I mean, he walked around. Well, what are they going to do? Not pay? So, I mean, every person that comes down here does have a story. You know, you can tell by me, I don't want to kill you guys, but, you know, Debbie would have to put me to bed at midnight, or I could keep going.
The quote you had from the last quote you
Yeah.
had was not in either of the clippings that Deb had sent to us by email. So
We saved that one for you.
We just gave you a little.
Oh, okay.
We saved that for you because there was a nice story written on him.
So what do you have?
Well, what we do is, the problem is that here's the funny thing about it is, every article that we saw on him, and especially talking about training camp, it was only 2 weeks long.
Yeah.
They went on and on about the strenuous exercises they had to do before the rest of the skating.
Yeah.
But they would only mention his name every now and then because he was just this hard-nosed, crazy guy putting them through the workouts.
Right.
So that was it. But there was a nice story written on him, which we have for you.
Andy Lido.
And he was the guy at the time.
The story with him, I found out, is that he was a very popular longtime writer for the paper.
Andy what?
Lytle.
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 And he'd go on these drinking binges. So Conn Smythe and Selke would fill in writing the stories so that he wouldn't get fired. You know? So we don't know who wrote that story.
Yeah, maybe he's wrote his own story, but you know, but the bottom line is, what we've been able to find is that he was a military man through and through, well respected, and he's one of these guys. And this is the other part about it is that as I said to you before, I think twice already, is that he did the workouts with the players.
Yeah.
Remember, he's in his late 40s. These guys are in their 20s. Conn Smythe did the workouts with them, and that included carrying guys on their backs, and they did that exercise. So these guys were all in. And so they're all in. Not like today where the guy's sitting up in the crowd drinking a Starbucks coffee or whatever he's doing and doing nothing.
So where did Conn Smythe's military background and Austin Hadfield's
That's what we're working on.
link?
Well, I mean, there's obviously some connection there. I'm working on that.
Yeah.
Well, Granddad
So I've reached out.
was World War I. He was a sniper and a warrant officer.
Yeah.
We can't access the military records. The family has to.
Yeah, okay.
And so,
We have quite a bit of it. Rod can fill you in on a lot.
Well, there's actually a couple of
Conn Smythe was very aware with the HLI's reputation for how tough a gun they had. By 1936, Granddad had been training them for 7 years. And they were a tough bunch of young boys. And it showed up when they were competing with other regiments around too, the difference. Conn Smythe was very aware of that. And he would be looking at his group of overweight soft boys coming into the fall, and his spectators wanted to see fast hockey right away, not a month later while they were getting in shape. So that is something you do with it. That's the way Granddad told me.
No, you're absolutely right. But the thing is, the rest of these guys didn't do that. They just let those guys go. Like, the funny thing is, there was a young kid, Jimmy Fowler, who was trying out for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he said he was a great up-and-comer, but he's taking his time getting into shape, so you're going to have to wait on him. So, like, who does that? Like today, Lance. Imagine today, a guy shows up at MasterCard Center. Well, I'm not quite ready yet. That'd be bullet in the head, gone.
All that kind of physical training was done in the military way. No equipment. No equipment.
Exactly. So
Everything with their own body.
these guys took a hard, but it was supposed to be stretching exercise. But I can't stress to you guys enough how much it really was. It was pressing because they kept going on. They had to get up at 7 o'clock. They had to be on the field at 8:15. They had to play golf. And then 3 hours on the ice. And then if you were last in the drills, you did extra work on the ice. And Conn Smythe and Powers and Irwin are standing right there, and Selke are standing right there watching the whole thing. So, I mean, it's a fascinating story. I think there's more to it. And now you've got my juices flowing on it. I'm going to do more work on it. Because the thing is, there's definite connection with Conn Smythe and Sgt Major Hadfield. Because for sure, because he's his kind of guy. Hard-ass, tough, no-nonsense guy, and that's exactly what Smythe was.
And a real pussycat, you know.
Well, yeah, but you can see. But I'll bet you dollars to donuts.
It's later years when I knew it.
No, I'll bet you dollars to donuts that when he saw that Sgt Major Hadfield was doing those exercises, Conn Smythe jumped right in there and got guy in his back and ran down that field too. And he did. We have a picture of him. We have a picture, Debbie. We've got one picture. Got to be him in the picture.
Oh.
Well,
I have a lot of stuff that we will email you because I'm trying
Yes.
to
Oh,
do
great.
the best that I can.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you some
What's
stuff.
it from?
Okay, so these are, a lot of these are from the star, the globe.
Here.
Like, these are
But
all-
where's the magnifying? I see.
We're gonna hit the Conn
That
Smythe
you
papers.
can tell us probably better. That
Roger can.
you know, you see that picture right there.
Grab a magnifying glass there.
That's the players all doing like a wrestling move, and there's the instructor in the middle, and there's only one instructor. Now there's no name.
And it was 36.
36, 37, he did that for 2 years.
October 21st, 36.
Yep,
That's 36?
yep.
Yeah.
He was there 37, and we have the, where's those other two pictures, Deb?
She's looking.
No, the photographs.
He would be somewhere in
They're up
And
here.
then,
I'm just wondering what's him in the hat.
Yeah,
Now-
you're in the hat.
If he's in civilian clothes, he would not have been in the Gulf area.
Now I found those, but those are 1935.
Yeah, we were looking at those.
Kitchener.
then what
So
we'll
they
have
must have
to
moved the
do
training camp down to.
Yeah.
they found all these, Paul and Mike found all these articles where he's being mentioned.
Yeah.
We're going to give you
If
copies
he's
of
in
all
that
the.
group,
Oh, that's
And
great.
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
how he's got all the
That's his
information
back.
about the
And
workouts.
you've got
everything.
them like a
Yeah.
JPEG or something.
Yeah. You got them all. Yeah.
I don't know
The way you
just
sent
what
them,
that's
Paul,
all
right?
about.
Yeah.
Well, you did.
Let me have a look.
Yeah, we did all of them.
So I was able to blow up what I could
Very well
on
begun.
some of them here.
That's 35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That looks sort of like that. That's your build.
Yeah, that's the
That,
long
that-
back and
I
the
would,
long legs.
I mean, I'd almost swear that was him.
The one in the hat.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I bet you it is. I mean, he's built just like you in your 40s.
And he's a big
there.
guy, you can see, and the players, and every player's matched off.
Yeah.
So if you look, every player's matched off in the photo except him. And that's the instructor. There was only one instructor,
Yeah.
him.
Exactly.
So
He's got those long.
now where's the other, we have another
He's
picture.
built
Debbie, show
just
the other
like Dad in
picture.
that picture. Almost looks a little like Mamie, actually, that build.
Oh, yeah, I got this on my iPad. This one. There's another one here. We're not finished with you guys yet.
It's okay.
Good. I'm in no rush.
We've got, oh no, I meant not like that. I meant, I meant going to try and find some more information for you. Now, like, where's this, where's,
Look at the Conn Smythe papers.
Oh, lovely.
Just in case.
okay, now, now you guys would be able to tell this one differently. There's, see, there it is. Hockey is training serious business for the Leafs.
When's this?
This is, now this one is from 1936, October 21st.
Ah, same.
So there. But there is the players walking to,
You know, you can go in and out like
That's
that. Mom.
36.
so here's another story for you. Here, Sgt Major was, when he was training the players, they asked him one time, and they're doing the one story on him, when Lytle was doing the story, they said, are any of the players giving you a hard time?
No.
Oh, I'll wait for you, wait for your mom. So. No, wait for your mom so she can hear this. She'll want to hear this.
Bring it down. Let's see the top one again, please.
Go like this one.
Yeah, I think this is just.
Oh, I just a picture of the top. I wanted to show you that. If we turn it sideways, maybe we can get a little better look at it. That if it goes.
Yeah, when he did the stuff outside and in the initial training, he'd be in uniform. Use his whistle. He'd be setting the pace for discipline, sort of, and nothing better than a uniform to get that going.
Well, I got a good story for you because what happened was he was asked, "How are the players responding to your workouts?" And he said, "Bowl is at the top. Conacher's another one. He's a tough guy. By the way, he weighed 209 pounds. He was the heaviest guy in camp. 209 pounds." So, well, he said to him, "Well, tell me what was going on?" He says, "Well, one day they're doing these drills where they're running up and down hills, and so Conacher and the players were getting dirty. So Conacher all of a sudden stops and takes his pants off. And they said, 'What are you doing?' And he said, 'Underwear can be used to mop floors. Those pants I paid $17.50 for. I'm saving them.'" So they're wearing. So they're wearing. Well, look at the clothes they're wearing in that picture. They're wearing regular street clothes to work out. There's no gym stuff in Adidas and Under Armour and all that kind of Gucci stuff. They're wearing their street clothes.
Shirt on. That's cute.
Oh,
Had a
we
Leaf shirt. Wonder who that is.
Todd, have you done any research with what used to be the Galt
We just
Reporter
got that one
newspaper?
yesterday. from
We
Telegram.
haven't, and I've got somebody doing that.
So I'm gonna
Because
This
they'll-
is which
you know,
paper?
They love quotes. We often
Oh, this is a
interview
Telegram.
Brandon.
Microfiche for that.
Well, I've got somebody doing some work on that. He's going to come back to me in the next couple days.
Good.
Is
I-
there stuff on microfiche? Or is it on?
Paul introduced me to him, and he seems like a very knowledgeable guy. He lives right across the street from Riverside Park, so he's right there. And he knew the hotel right where the Leafs were kitty corner too when they stayed, so he knew it all. And he's got a big collection.
You know what you do before before you leave, you'll give me your emails, so that I don't have to just go through
Yes.
this. And we'll send you
Evening
everything that we
Telegram,
have,
we had different
okay?
editions in one
Okay, and
day.
we'll send you all the articles that we
Yeah,
have.
sure.
But I appreciate the job of the
the only way
journalist
to
when we're trying to do research,
distribute
how long it takes sometimes to track this stuff down. Just going through this stuff and reading.
Sinclair here.
You find smart people like you to do the work.
So Lance, I got all this. Yeah.
So the process by which you took a microfiche and made this, what did you do?
We,
Here's the expert.
well, you have to find it. There's no search method in it.
Right.
So you actually go by day by day, article by article.
Where did you go? Where
We
physically?
went to the North York Public Library.
Okay, so at the North York Library, you go into the microfiche reading room and you start blowing it up
Well,
little
No,
sheet
no, no,
by
no.
sheet.
Well, yeah, you
Yeah.
it's digitized now, so you just go one to
Oh,
the
it's
next.
digitized.
You got to go get the year
And-
first. You
and
got to
then-
go find a
Yeah.
cartridge.
And now you can save it on a memory stick, and then
Right.
you can bring it home with you.
But it's not actually on the microfiche paper anymore or film?
It's on this like a film thing. You have to
Okay.
have a machine. And you
Yeah,
have to
okay, because I've done that.
Still
Yeah.
true
It's still-
microfiche.
It-
Yes,
it's
yes,
better
yes,
now than it
yes.
used to be, but we'd like to get our hands on that.
And
Well, I got a
then,
little bit of time, so I'm going to go to a couple of the other different museums and research libraries, and I'm going to try and search a little bit
Start
further.
stuff off online off the. I can show you how to get the Star
Yeah,
and the
the
Globe.
star stuff wasn't on the microfiche. The star stuff you were able to get.
Yeah,
No, the star stuff we can get. That's online. You can get
yeah,
that.
I see.
yeah.
The telly. So now that's we got Bassett working on. Try and get it so we can.
And did Granddad, so this was October of 36, was he also 37?
Yeah, 37 too. He did 2 years.
Just the 2 years?
2 years.
By 39, they were mobilized.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
but not 38.
No.
Not that we can find, but it doesn't.
Well, actually, doesn't mean he wasn't there as an advisor. I shouldn't say that.
So I
You can remember,
then, that'd be 38.
you remember being the box in Maple Leaf Gardens? And you were born in 34. So he would have been, that would have been 38 probably.
You know what? I shouldn't have said no because yeah, you could be because we just had the 2 years.
Yeah.
Because this was the second year, so we just looked there.
Yeah, you have to remember the names are spelled with a T.
Yeah,
Yes.
J. Austin or.
They call him TA.
AJ, yeah, he was always AJ, but
So,
the reporters don't get it right.
No, they
frequently.
didn't. It just takes time to go through and find this information.
you know my middle name's Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's a great story.
yeah.
I think it's great. So I'm gonna do some more work on it. I'm gonna use Paul, and we'll try to track down what we can.
We now have a great grandson whose second name is Austin.
Yep,
We
that's
have a
right.
grandson named
So
Austin.
we're
Yeah.
probably going to want to see all this.
Yeah.
And my son's AJ.
And my sister's AJ.
So you guys keep it.
Another sister.
Yeah.
You guys haven't strayed too far outside of the name pool.
No, why would you? Pretty good.
They work. It
stock.
works.
They're pretty good stock. So that's a lot of pages. Are there multiples or a lot of
Yeah,
different?
we're gonna
info?
like you guys can have. Yeah, you
Oh,
can
that's
have.
wonderful.
And then I'm going to email because I guess I
Yeah, the
digital's
digital's easiest. Yeah,
And then
of
you
course.
can.
Then you can.
Yeah.
I was able to read it
Or you
better,
can-
I'm
too.
going to go back in and I'm going to, so you can do a page scan or you can do an individual story scan.
Ah,
And so I think I can make them better.
okay.
But you know, the other part about it too is you got to remember back in that time, and the other thing why Sgt Major be another big deal was that the Leafs had 3,000 ticket holders in 1936. They got 1,000 from having a good year moving into 1937, and it was all about the pitch still. Like I have an ad back there when they played the St. Louis Eagles. Still tickets available in the 30s. So going to these games, they had, and in 1937,
So just say that again. Season tickets or total tickets?
season tickets, you had 3,000.
3,000.
They sold 1,000 to have over the season for going into 1937, and Conn Smythe is saying our 4,000 season ticket holders. I know you can't make every game, but come to the games when you can. And those of you who don't, please come to the games. We're going to put a great product on the ice for you.
I see.
So it's all about to promote, and this was in training camp. And it's all about that. Here you have, and remember in those times, Howie Moran's, who everybody knows is a big thing. 37 was when he.
They had,
I don't know who that is.
Well, Howie Moran's was the
Howie
famous
Moran's.
Montreal player that died, and he was the leading scorer, and he was
in the
their.
hospital, he
and died.
And they had memorial
So the memorial they had for him,
All-Star
Memorial
game.
Game All-Star, yeah.
the memorial they had for him.
Probably covers it better than anything else, and that would be the Gulf Daily Reporter.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Everything to do with that regiment was generally an interview with Granddad, because he was a boy who only had lots of print and such. So just everything, there was an article every week in the Gulf Reporter, up to date on the developing regiment. Mostly closer to the war, but through the mid-30s,
The Galt Daily Reporter?
The Galt Reporter, it'll be something pretty good.
Wonder
We'll
if that's
find something.
digitized.
Changed its names a few times.
Well, that's why Smythe would go to him. He's the main guy, so he's not going to the B player. He's going to the A guy.
Yeah, we have to go to
So that's why he took your dad. He's going to the top
the
guy.
library.
He's going to the king guy.
Oh, no, that's my friend.
Oh, it's your friend.
Yeah, he's got,
Yeah.
But I was going to tell you also, is you got to remember those times, Harry Moran's is a big thing. And the Montreal Canadiens, they always talk about the Canadians and this, long passion. For his memorial game, they had 8,500 people.
Huh.
And the rink sold double that. And they raised $5,000 for the family off of that, but they ended up getting about $18,000, which was an unheard of sum at the time.
it was for Harry Morris Jr., who
Yeah.
was here.
And he was here.
Yeah.
I had him
nice.
here. I wouldn't let him in because he's wearing a Montreal Canadian hat. And he
Canadians.
introduced himself.
Wrong color jacket.
He didn't wear this jacket. I have seasons tickets, and the person in the seasons tickets next to me is the longest seasons ticket holder of anybody. It predates Maple Leaf Gardens. They had seasons tickets,
At Mutual Street?
yeah, at Mutual Street, and then they had all through the gardens, and now they do in the center.
Wow.
And the same family has had them the whole time.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Not too many of them around.
Fella sitting next to me. Yeah.
Not too many. The other funny story was that Busher Jackson. Now, Busher Jackson was a very sad case. I should tell you also because the other part of the story with that woman with the grandfather was that Busher Jackson was a bad drinker, and he was a partier. He was out all the time, and that's why Conn Smythe traded him in 1937 because of that, because he wouldn't put up with that nonsense.
To be inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame either. He was
So
principled, yeah.
he got out. So you can imagine he wasn't in always probably the best of shape. So he got out of training camp one year with Sgt Major because he had to go to Detroit for a puck hitting contest. Somebody got hit with a puck, so he was testifying on behalf of the hockey team. So he welcomed that one.
The Preston Springs Hotel, doesn't seem like much, but I'm pretty sure it was the best hotel anywhere in the area in 1936.
He was a mineral
Very
spring.
many people needed hotels around Gulf.
It was
Yeah.
a spa. It was a
And
mineral
it had
spring.
reputation way before that. It was the Springs Hotel. It was the healing place, and it been going on for a long time. But
So they weren't
it was
just in
good.
North
It
Barracks.
was-
Mom, can you
I-
pass me that other photo, please?
No, I mean it's definitely worth the. So anyway, that's pretty much all I've got for Albion. I've got lots. If you guys want to hear more stories about it, I've taken up enough of your time. But if you guys want to hear, you guys got any questions, feel free.
So where should we go next with this? I think looking at the local Galt paper, I don't know if that's been digitized or not, but that'd be a great idea.
He's working.
I've got somebody working on that already, so
Oh,
let
do
him
you?
do it because this guy's is somebody who does it. I don't want to call him an expert, but he's pretty good at it, and he knows the area extremely well. He lives down, he's been down there, and he's a researcher, and knows all about the area.
So Chris, is this your next book?
So if you were, maybe a chapter, if you were looking for October 36 or 37 or 38, then you could probably find some examples of those papers, I bet, huh?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the small town papers have been digitized.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is fortunate. So if a local library doesn't have it, it could be online, or maybe they kept paper somehow.
And where were they skating then when they had the afternoon
At the Galt
skate?
Arena.
At the Galt Arena.
Arena. Yeah.
Then does that still exist?
The one in Soper Park?
Relatively speaking, old newspaper in 1936. They've been going since at least the turn of the century or before.
Does that arena not still exist?
I don't know the old Galt Arena. Raj, is the old Galt Arena the one over in
All
Soper
through
Park?
the very late 30s.
Can't hear you.
I mean, he's deaf.
They followed the
Yeah.
regiment with an article on their
The one in
progress
Soper Park.
right across.
They used to have a senior team there.
Took a right
Yeah,
to
that's
the
where the
end of
Galt Terriers
war
played.
every week.
I played for the Cambridge Hornets one time.
Yeah,
The,
Cambridge
the
Hornets.
Galt Arena, is it still there, do you know?
The one in Soper Park?
The oldest one.
Probably
It has
not-
that
probably
park
been condemned
beside
or
it,
something, but I
I
just
think, yeah.
figured they were
We
the
went
kids.
there
Yeah.
once.
When I was in high school in Galt, one of some of the players were still in Galt High School. One of them was Pete Conacher.
Yeah.
Oh, Pete?
Yeah.
Pete's been here. Actually, Pete's
a
asked me
good
to skate
friend.
with. They
I
skate
never
Sunday
got
mornings.
to know him, but
Yeah.
So my earliest memory of the Leafs, it's funny, Dad talking about going to sit in the box at Maple Leaf Gardens in, I guess, what would be 38, is I was born in Sarnia, and we had a house on Flamingo Drive in Sarnia. And my earliest memory is sitting with Dad watching a Leafs game when Davy Keon was playing. And for me, he was a god. You know, even his name sounds like a stage name. You know, it's got a nice ring to it. And for me, that's what really, there was no question. You know, that's the team that has the family tradition and the team that I support, and ever since then. So it's kind of interesting where I've taken Leaf viewing. And I watched, when I was on board the space station, all 3 of the networks were nice enough to take the games, take out all of the commercials, just take it right down to the playing, and ship it up to me. And no one would tell me the score. So that, because I had to work out 2 hours.
You're on Twitter.
I had to work out 2 hours a day up on the space station. And so I would, as I was working out, and because that was the delayed start season because of the strike, they didn't start playing until I'd been up on the station a few weeks, so it worked out perfect. And so I would watch the Leaf games up there, and then it came right through their season, right through to when they were in the start of the playoffs, and they were playing Boston. And, you know, and while they were doing that last game against Boston is while we were re-entering into the atmosphere and landing in Kazakhstan. And it wasn't until I landed and they handed me the satellite phone to talk to my wife, and I asked her, "So how you doing? How's the family? How'd the Leafs do?" And she said, "I'm sorry, they lost."
And he's wearing a Leaf shirt.
I was wearing a Leaf shirt underneath my spacesuit at the time.
The pictures on,
Yeah.
on the internet are fantastic. Galt Arena Gardens, it's still there, and there's a park beside it.
Galt Arena Gardens is still there?
And
Oh.
they have pictures on there. You know, who knows? They might have a picture of.
So that, I was just thinking, if that building was still there, they may have a dusty old room or archives,
There's a road trip here I can see in the website.
or if you go to the
Yeah,
Galt,
exactly.
Galt City Hall, I bet you they have old records also.
And with Ed, Heather's going to help us,
Yeah.
and he's local to the area, so we're going to.
We've been changing emails, so he said he's going to go next couple days and he's going to do some work.
I'd love to see what they have.
And-
Oh, Granddad.
And this is just to whet your eternal appetite, and that is, on board the space station, I had a Leafs logo with me that I took pictures of, and I floated it around, and I had it during the games, and I had the back of it stamped with the space station. We have an ink stamp up there to show everything that's been on board the space station, and it's come back to Earth. And right now I've given it to Larry and Judy Tannenbaum, who are friends of ours, and so they have it, but I'm not sure where they're going to donate it. They've mounted it so you can see the front and the back. Actually, last night I just wrote the history of that piece of memorabilia to go with it, and I don't know if it's going in. Where do you want it to go? I don't know where it's going, but I don't know where they may. I don't know where Larry and maybe Hockey Hall of Fame or something. I don't know what Larry and Judy have in mind.
Actually, we've got a spot for you we can tell you about.
But Larry, I know Larry and Judy have it right now, and I was flying back late last night, and I just happened to finally sit down and write the history of that
Awesome.
little piece.
Awesome.
So, and including 5 photographs of me. I took it down into the big bulging window of the space station with the world in the background and me smiling and that thing floating in space next to me. And I have the 5 photos of that too. So I sent that to Larry and Judy last night.
That's
so.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
There's going to be an exhibit that the Canada is doing next year.
That's right.
The Museum of Canada.
For the
For
anniversary.
the anniversary, they will be borrowing some of our items.
Yeah.
So that may be one, and I'm working
That's what we're
with
gonna
them.
suggest.
That's what we're going to suggest, because there's certain items that they're borrowing here for a couple of
Right.
years.
That's-
And I think that probably would be really good for the collection.
That's a
They've asked
killer
us-
piece.
They've asked us if there's
Well,
anything else that we would like to
Especially,
suggest.
you know, tying back to my great grandfather,
Yes.
you know.
And that's what we're thinking, we can just start the story. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a pretty good story here, don't you think, Lance?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of interesting, yeah. Well,
I've got a space memorabilia.
I'm sure you.
yeah, that's been around the world.
That's been around the world.
Has it?
92
The Galt
times.
Arena was started voting. That's one of the oldest.
Yeah, that's a perfect
It's an
piece
old
for.
You
arena.
remember the first game? What date it was? I might have the tape of that game.
Don't know.
Keon playing. You don't remember?
Don't know.
Oh, it's-
We lived there until 66.
Oh, yeah, we moved to Milton when you were 7.
We moved. When did we actually move from
Yeah.
from Sarnia to Milton?
67.
From Sarnia to Milton, when did the family move?
Easter 67.
67.
Oh, okay.
I was down there.
Yeah. So it might have been the winter of 66,
Yeah, I
67.
would-
Well, the right year.
Telecast of the
Right,
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you should move
Well,
again.
you're welcome. Yeah.
Around
You think-
67 was kind of.
I thought being in orbit was kind of, doing my best. Got them into the playoffs,
Well, I had these sticks. I was at all the games, and when they were showing you all the time.
Oh.
Cambridge, called Cambridge now. But
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
So there's an archives there.
Yeah.
Well, it might probably be worth
The
a look
newspaper for
around.
many years, I don't know whether it still is or not, was part of the Thompson chain.
Oh,
Thompson bought it a long
Now,
time.
what game did you drop the puck?
it was the.
How's that game? How's that game
You know, it's actually kind of hard to tell from orbit which game I dropped the puck for.
Yeah, it's a little tough to get there.
And also, we didn't. I got this note saying, "Hey, can you drop a puck up there?" I'm going, "A puck?
Yeah.
I'm on a spaceship. Where are you going to find a puck?" But I said, "Yes, I can drop the puck from here. We'll figure out something." And on board the space station, there's a computerized inventory management system, and so I go in and I put in puck, and there was no puck on board, right? And I'm thinking hockey. There's no. What am I going to do? And so the Russian food cans are about the size of a puck. And so I got one of the Russian food cans, and I'm there with one of the black Sharpie magic markers thinking, is this going to work? But then one of the other crew members, he came floating up to me with a camera lens cover. And it was exactly the right size and flat black. And of course it's hollow, but I held it and I went, that looks just like a puck if you hold it right. So when we did that thing, and of course it's weightless, you don't have. So I held that, and when I let go of it, I just had to make sure it didn't tip, so you could see that it was hollow underneath. When I let go of it, and it floated, and then threw it down, and Felix caught it back down on Earth. So worked out perfectly. So yeah, it was very fun.
Who's on board with you at the time?
Well, there are 6 of us.
Yeah.
Let's see. At that time, there were 3 Russians, 2 Americans, and myself on board. Yep.
Were they hockey fans at all?
The Russians, yeah.
Yeah, the
Roman.
Russians would be.
And here's another story too. So they would send me these games up there, and they'd cut out all of the commercials, but they left in Coach's Corner. Well, I'd asked you because I know Ron McLean, and that's a really fun part of the game. And I gave the Calder Trophy out one year, and I got to know Ron then. And so I was watching the game, and I was on the treadmill, watching the game. And Roman Romanenko, who's grew up near Moscow, he came floating through just as Coach's Corner came on, and he stopped behind me, and he's looking at this thing, and he loved Don Cherry. He just thought grapes, as he called them, grapes. Мне нравятся grapes. человек. And so Roman wasn't all that interested in the Leafs, but he loved grapes. And so he would come in and watch Coach's Corner with me on board the space station. So it's, and I don't know if Don and Ron know that, but it was pretty funny at the time.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
If you send you up.
And there are pictures of me exercising with the Leafs playing, and actually with Coach's Corner up on the screen. I know, because I think they got a screen grab and showed it on Coach's Corner one day, I think. But anyway, pretty entertaining.
Oh, that's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome stuff. I think that crest belongs in the Canadian Historical Museum.
Yeah, we'll see. Larry and Judy have it. It's their team, and they can decide. I'm sure they'll find a good spot.
Well, he's our new friend, Larry.
Yeah,
He's our buddy.
They're good people.
He came here, and we have him on video from Duke, just loving this place, and said he's another one that believes all Canadians should see what we have here.
Yeah, it's an
And
amazing
we are trying
collection.
to do something good with this, Chris. As you know, we're trying to the charity events that we're doing, Can Fund that you're involved in. We're doing with Brian Burke, and his cane is
Road to Conquer Cancer.
So
Yeah.
we're trying to do whatever
Yeah,
we can.
lots.
People will pay money to come here.
Sure.
And that's
Then
what
what do
we're
you do
trying
with the
to
money?
right now.
We do similar. I have a lot of my stuff out on loan to various museums around Canada, and some we donate, and we do things all the time. So yeah, it's the same idea. But I see you have Wayne Gretzky's skates. I know there are people that have stuff of mine that I don't know how they got it either. But it's
Okay,
Down here,
but here's a story for those skates. So see Leroy Neiman picture of Gretzky in the Edmonton was the famous one, and I remember seeing that for $1,500 in New York when I had no money, and I said, how am I ever going to afford to buy that thing? And the Andy Warhol, and then of course the Zorba, all these Gretzky famous lithograph pieces. So I wanted one. So I'm dealing with this guy in Western Canada, in Edmonton, and I knew his name was Joe, and he was selling all these things. So I was trying to buy one off him, but I could never really afford it. I was trying to work him on the prices. So when this was in a long time ago, about 20 years. So I'm in my basement, which was finished at the time, and I bought these skates at an auction, because a lot of these auctions, this one you had to go on phone. None of these texting and all that, it's the computers. And I bid on them, and it was a guy had the Bobby Orr gloves from the goal, and the skates, and he had a bunch of sticks. So anyway, I bid on the skates and win them because I just want a pair of game-used skates. So they arrive when I'm talking to Joe on the phone. So I said, "No, Joe, I got to think about what I'm going to do, but I'll come back to you." He said, "What are you going to do the rest of the night?" Mike said, "Well, actually, interesting enough, I just got a nice piece of memorabilia sent to me, and I'm just going to open it." He said, "What'd you buy?" I said, "Well, I got a pair of Gretzky skates." "Oh, what kind of skates?" I said, "Just the regular ones." I said, "I'm opening them up here now." He goes, "Well, Scott, what's the serial number on the inside?"
What's the serial number on the skates?
Well, there's a code. There's
Yeah.
a code they have because so the make and style.
Sure, yeah.
So it's worn off. So we go through all this stuff. "Are you sure they're the real?" I said, "Oh, you know, they're the real deal because the blade, the number, the shellac toe." And he goes, "No, that's right, and the big tongue." And so he's going on, and I said, "Well, where's the number?" And he said, "Well, there is no number." And he said, "Well, the strip, and there's a strip in the back of felt." But I said, "Oh, I thought all players did that." He said, "Okay, Mike, I'm going to ask you to do something." I said, "Okay, first off, Joe, like, you're getting a little weird here. What is this?" He goes, "Well, quite frankly, Mike, I would only like tell people my name's Joe Esposito. I was the equipment manager of the Oilers their whole time.
Oh.
Those skates, do you want to put your hand down the left boot?" I said, "You got to be kidding me." Like, you're on the phone. I go, "Yeah." "Is there a hole in the heel?" I said, "Yeah, there is." He goes, "Those are the skates." I said, "What do you mean the skates?" "Those are the record-breaking skates." And what happened was, because they're leather, they split in the middle, like where the sewing was, and they were rubbing on his Achilles and cutting his feet. So he was trying to fit, and he couldn't sew it because the leather was all dry. So he was trying to pad the heel so Gretzky could continue to wear the skates. And he kept wearing them and wearing them and wearing them. And finally, he had to take them off. So he said to me, "Mike, those are primo skates." I said, "Well, what a fluke." He goes, "I don't even know what you paid for them. I'll pay double right now for them."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, now you've told me that. I can't, you know."
You meant triple, right?
So I met Gretzky years ago
Yeah.
and showed him to him. He confirmed the whole story and he signed the bottom.
Wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
He was here, as you know, this summer.
Yeah.
He did come to the case and he did go through everything.
Well, the funniest thing is with him, he's going by the case. And as I said to you, when I met him, he when I showed him a bunch of pictures of my old house and displaying him, he just threw them aside. And he talked about Notre Dame and talked about the Leafs and always wanted to play for the Leafs and went on and on and on about that. Talked about, because I used to have a place in Forest Hill Road. He goes, "I told Janet I want to buy a house in that street before I die. I want to live there." And he was going on and on. So anyway, so he knew all these things. And so I knew he didn't want to talk about himself. So when he came down here and we're doing the tour and walking around, I thought by the case I'll just waltz him by. And so the guys here were filming. And so he goes by, and there's a picture over there, a contract of him on the Dottie West show and the contract that he signed to go on the show. So he's walking by like this because I'm speeding it up. And he goes, "Yeah, I remember that." She goes, "Well, that's your contract." And he leans over and goes, "Where the hell did you get that?" And I said, so I told him, I said, "By the way, you've seen it once already. He signed it for me." So, and I said, "Well, if you like that, you'll love this one. Here's your Saturday Night Live contract." And his face, and they've got the picture, he goes, "Where the F did you get that?" And screams, and it's on tape.
And that's one of the things that they want to, Saturday Night Live contract.
That's
it's
funny.
on the list of the items that they want, because we've now put his reaction on.
Who's they? Who wants?
Oh, the Canadian Historical Museum.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the museum. They've given us a list of what they want to borrow. That's one of them, and I think it's because we've put it on our website and
yeah.
we've put it on our Facebook, and
They know
everybody's
about
seen
it.
the reaction of Gretzky when he saw that, and it's.
That's funny.
But, but he's funny. He's one of those guys that, dumb as a fox.
Oh, he is.
Well, because it's those things that he doesn't care about the memorabilia. But he pointed at a piece I have over there, a double piece over there by Gary Glenn, which was Shoot Scores, and it's when he set Mero up for the 87 goal, the winner against the Russians in the Canada Cup. And he pointed and goes, "Where'd you get that?" I said, "Oh, I bought it when it first came. I've never seen that." I said, "Come on." He
What
said,
did he say when he saw his skates?
he like, again, he's so modest, but he went, "That's Stan." He knew that. He said, "I remember those." And he says, "Oh, yeah, they killed my feet." And he told me again, reiterated the story. But, he tells you that story, but he knew right away that poster, like that double lithograph I had, he'd never seen it. So for a guy who doesn't know his memorabilia, he knows every piece.
Yeah, sure.
But then you get this thing about a guy like him, you're sitting there, and again, I always alert, could you see some of these guys, athletes today doing this? He points at that Belfour sweater and goes, "I see I have Eddie Belfour sweater in front of the whole room now." And he said, tell you the kind of guy Eddie Belfour is that Eddie, when we had the Canada Cup or the Olympics in 2002, I called him in and said, "Eddie, we got Marty and Curtis. We're going to run with them. Curtis is going to get the lead, and Marty's there to back up." I said, "You're not going to play. And, if you want to go home, go. Nobody will know. Nobody will know the difference. Not an issue." And Belfour looked at him and he said, "Nope, I'll sharpen skates. I want to be here. I want to be a part of it." That's the kind of guy he is. But now, fast forward to today, he's selling all his memorabilia, including his gold medal and all that stuff. Eddie Balfour. So it only lasts for so long.